barring any other things that you guys see, you can start whenever you want.
Who here has heard of Alcatraz?
I have. The name's Al Capone. And let me just say that place, it was hell. But I got out 4 years and 5 months later. Now I'm back doing what I love, killing people.
Many of you have heard of Al Capone, or the prison that he was put into, Alcatraz, from either movies or television shows, or from actually visiting the island in San Francisco.
Alcatraz is an American relic that represented the prison system of the 20th century. Today we'll be discussing 5 key topics pertaining to Alcatraz. First, a brief history of Alcatraz. Second, a look into the daily lives of the inmates who went there. Third, we shall examine the lives of some of the families of the guards that lived on Alcatraz. Fourth, we'll take a look at some of the famous criminals that went through Alcatraz. And lastly, we'll look at Alcatraz today.
Alright, first we're going to go through the history of Alcatraz. According to PBS.org, Alcatraz is not an island, copyright 2002. The history of Alcatraz starts far before it was a prison. Native Americans lived on Alcatraz before Americans got there and hit California. They used it for fishing and for living on. And then in 1709, a Spanish sailor named Juan Manuel sailed into San Francisco Bay and was looking around, saw some things he liked, and he dubbed that island La Isla de Alcatraz, which is loosely translated into the island of the seabirds. Okay, fast forward a couple hundred years now. According to AlcatrazHistory.com, explore San Francisco, last updated February 2nd, 2012. In 1859, the US government was set up and everything, and they decided we need to fortify San Francisco Bay. So they turned this island into a military fortress with cannons and whatnot, trying to cut down on any foreign invaders that might swing by California for a trip. And then in 1907, Civil War finished up. There wasn't a big threat anymore, and they thought that instead of being a fortress, it was better used as a prison for soldiers who went AWOL or shot somebody they weren't supposed to and were just in trouble. And that went on for a little bit. And then, according to AlcatrazCruises.com, LLC, copyright 2006, it was then sold to California State, and they turned it into a maximum security prison. Now what separates a maximum security prison from a regular prison is a few little upgrades and perks that kind of just put it up a notch. First, all the guards carried Thompson submachine guns, and those are those big Tommy guns that everybody's seen in the gangster movies. They use tear gas turrets, which are really high tech for back in the day. They were turrets that were set up in a ceiling, and they had a robotic arm that could shift to like 360 degrees, and it would shoot down tear gas canisters if there was a riot. They were set up in the mess halls, the showers, and near all the exits. It was really high tech. It's just years ahead of its time. And then they also used German shepherds for security. They were trained to attack anybody that they saw outside of the perimeters, and they proved to be very effective.
And once the state of California had purchased the island from the military, it began to house inmates. Now these inmates had a very regimented schedule, in that, according to Ed Grebenowski's Life on Alcatraz on How Stuff Works in association with HistoryChannel.com, the inmates would wake up to a warning bell at 6:30 in the morning. They would dress themselves, sweep out their cells, and then stand out at attention. Now most of us in here have probably seen The Shawshank Redemption. Well, in that movie, when the head guard yells inspection and all of the inmates move outside their cells to be looked at and their cells swept through, that's essentially what they did every single morning. After this inspection and head counting, they were then herded over to the cafeteria, where they would eat breakfast. Now, according to that same site, the food at Alcatraz was amazing in that they had many choices, it was quality food, and this is due to the wardens and other guards there hearing of prison riots that had occurred at other prisons throughout the United States because of the lack of quality food. After breakfast, the site goes on to say that all of the prisoners were then counted again and then sent off to their specific place where they worked on the island. Now, that could either be in the laundry rooms, down at the docks loading and unloading boats that came in, or at one of the many industrial plants that was on the island, whether it be tailoring, glove making, shoe making, or wood or metal crafting. After work, which lasted for about 6.5 hours, the inmates would then be counted again and then sent back into the cafeteria for dinner. They were again served good quality food, and then they were given 2.5 hours of free time, whether that be to go study in the library or go to the recreational facilities that were on the island. After that, around 9:30, the inmates were rounded up, counted one last time, and then put to bed for the night. According to David Lohr's Life Behind Bars on HistoryChannel.com, Alcatraz can be considered the prison system's prison, in that inmates who could not follow the rules of other prison systems or were just deemed too dangerous were sent to Alcatraz as a last-ditch effort to try to reincorporate them into society.
The inmates were not the only people who lived on the island. According to Alcatraz, Our National Parks by Lily Softman from the University of Miami School of Communication, published on May 2nd, 2008, there were 300 families who lived on the island, along with the 200 to 300 inmates. The families who lived on the island were generally the wives and children or relatives of the wardens and the guards. Most of them lived in building number 68, which they had set at a rent of $5, which was much cheaper than it actually was in San Francisco. According to A History of Alcatraz by Irwin Thompson from Ocean View Publishing Company, copyright 2011, there was also a boat that would go back and forth from the island 12 times a day, in case the residents on the island, besides the inmates, the families, needed to get to the island or get to the mainland for various reasons. They would usually take the boat if they needed to go buy groceries, which were not available on the island. The wives would use the boat to go back and forth from work, and the children used the boat to go back and forth from school. According to Alcatraz, Our National Parks by Lily Softman again, there were many services and things to do on the island for the families. They enjoyed doing many of the same things we do today, so they decided to put many of these options on the island so that they wouldn't have to go back and forth to the mainland all the time. There was a convenience store for small necessities such as water, drinks, or snacks, and other small necessities. There was a dance hall where the guards and families would have parties or dances and have fun. There was a soda fountain machine for the children where they could go and pick different flavors of soda. There was a theater that played the latest movies. There was a gym in case someone wanted to work out. There was ballet classes twice a week for the girls. And there was even a bowling alley.
With families living on the island, there was always someone on watch to make sure the infamous criminals stayed in their place. In fact, Alcatraz housed many infamous criminals. Al Capone, as seen here, was probably the most well-known of these criminals. He's very well known for being extremely well-dressed for a gangster. He always wanted to have his appearance show that he was a professional businessman. While he grew up in Chicago, Al Capone got into his gangster life pretty early, at a young age, and he developed his style of being very, very brutal. He liked to be able to have the upper edge on whoever, whatever the competition was, so he wanted to know them that he was boss. And Al Capone is probably most well known for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, in which he was the mastermind behind 6 people being murdered. And when they finally were able to put a crime, pin a crime on Al Capone, it was actually not for any violent crime. No one would actually speak out against Al Capone for fear of being killed, or because they didn't want to, he was very honorable and everything. They thought he was a Robin Hood of the day because he stole from the rich, and he always was very nice to the poor people, which was a big thing back in his day because of the Great Depression. There was a very high poverty population. So because no one would speak out against him, he actually got pinned for insurance fraud because he said that he was a furniture provider, but he never sold any furniture and he couldn't prove that at all. So he got put away for the maximum sentence of 10 years. And at first he went to Leavenworth Prison, and while staying there he was too buddy-buddy with the guards. They gave him special perks that other people did not receive. So he was moved to Alcatraz, where he'd be more looked after, and he wouldn't be on he wouldn't get perks and everything. So after 2 years, he was moved there. He served there for 4 years and 5 months. And during that time, he was very secluded. He didn't really do a lot with the other people because, first of all, he wanted to get out on good behavior because he wanted to like continue his gangster life. Like he had no ambitions of becoming a better person. Like he thought like who he was fine. And so he just kept to himself, and the other inmates really didn't actually like him. Right. Another person who's known is George Machine Gun Kelly. And according to BOP.gov, last updated 2012, and San Francisco WaterfrontAttractions.com, copyright 2009, which have both categorized Alcatraz prison and their inmates that they have housed there. They both show how George Machine Gun Kelly stole a vast fortune from a local island or oil tycoon, and then they went, him and his mistress, they went on a 10-state run actually, and once they were finally caught, they were taken to the local Ohio State prison, and here you'll see he's very well known for his fedora hat that he always wore. Like that was his like style that he had, and he was also a very like clean-shaven man. Like he thought his appearance was like really a big thing. Same thing with Al Capone. And while he was at Alcatraz prison, he again kind of kept to himself because he wanted to get out early. He was kind of violent, but kind of like sneakily violent, where he'd like attack people, but they wouldn't know that he did it. Like they couldn't pin anything on him. So he actually is thought to have done like a lot of like started some riots there, but they couldn't prove it. And then the third individual that we'll be looking at here, according to San Francisco WaterfrontAttractions.com, copyright 2009, was Robert Stroud, also known as Birdman of Alcatraz. Here you can see he's quite old. He actually grew up in the prison system. He was there for 54 years. He was in the prison system. And during his time, he was pretty violent. He started out where he killed his wife's lover, and then after he went to prison, he kind of developed like a love for birds, and that's why he's called the Birdman of Alcatraz. And that he stayed at Leavenworth Prison at first, and they were able to provide him like equipment where he could study birds because he was very fascinated with them. And he stayed there for 17 years, and during that time, he was able to find some disease like cures for birds, and he also kept canaries that he would give to people when they came and visit him. And then once he killed a guard and a prison inmate in a riot, he was sent to Alcatraz prison where he served for 17 years there as well. And during that time, he wasn't able to have his bird equipment, he wasn't able to study them, which extremely angered him. And they kept pretty good tabs on Robert Stroud because he was a very smart man, obviously because he'd studied birds and everything, and he knew how the prison system worked. So they always were trying to keep like good eyes on him because sometimes they would think that he would have devices like a shank or something that could kill somebody because that's what he had done during the riot at Leavenworth, that he had killed somebody with a shank. So they always were searching his cells, but they were never able to actually pin anything on him.
Because of Alcatraz's interesting history, many people still visit it today. As found on Alcatraz Things to Do, the article from the National Park Service's website, copyright 2009, tourism is a very big source of revenue for Alcatraz. When visiting an island, one must first find out how are you going to get to the island. The most commonly used mechanism of transportation from San Francisco, or like San Francisco and in the Bay, to Alcatraz is from the 33rd Pier. As you drive up and down the shoreline of San Francisco, you'll see a plethora of piers, and the 33rd one from the south is the one that is most commonly used for tourism and other things of that nature. And so once you're out at the island of Alcatraz, you really have two options. You can just go and forge your own trail and just kind of learn what you want, how you want, or you can go with the National Park Service Patrol officers, and they are more than happy to show you around, like with different videos and audio and tours. A couple different tours that they have at Alcatraz, according to the National Park Service's article, is like the first one is the Early Bird Tour, and it's called the Early Bird Tour because it starts on a daily basis at 9 a.m. at the 33rd Pier, and they take you on a brief boat tour of the island, and then after that they take you on a, I guess what they would call a regular tour of the island, and then it closes out with a 45-minute informational video about the island. Another type of tour that they have is called the Nighttime Tour, and that is available Thursday through Friday, or Thursday through Monday, and at about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, the ship leaves the 33rd Pier again, and it takes you on only a boat tour, so you get to go all the way around Alcatraz while learning pretty similar facts as to other tours, all while enjoying the San Franciscan sunset, which I hear is impeccable. A third tour that you can go on is the dual tour. They call it the dual tour because it's not limited just to Alcatraz, but they also throw in some information and a tour of Angel Island. It is just a boat tour, so you go all around Alcatraz, and then you also go around the Angel Island, which is quite close to the Alcatraz Island, and that's a good tour, but it's only available seasonally, so you kind of have to plan your trip around that. If you aren't really much for tours, you can, and you're more like athletic, I guess, you can visit during the time of the Escape from Alcatraz Triathlon. According to Eric Gilsonen's video titled "Tips on the Triathlon," found on escapefromalcatraztriathlon.com, copyright 2010. The Escape from Alcatraz Triathlon has been going strong since 1981. It is a very prestigious triathlon, and because of that, they only allow about 2,000 participants per year. It's prestigious because it's so hard. They don't want novice athletes hurting themselves. It starts off on Alcatraz, and you go for a 1.5 mile swim through the frigid, wavy waters of the San Franciscan Bay. And once you get to shore, you have a 1/2 mile warm-up run, just kind of to shake out the cold from the cold water. And that takes you to the bike station. And once you get to the bike station, you follow the royal blue line, all up and down, around, and then you take the light blue trail back. That is a total of about 18 miles for the whole bike ride. Yeah, it brings you back to where you started, so you drop your bike off at the bike station, and then you follow the purple for a nice run. It's an 8-mile run, and it is famous for its hills because it's San Francisco, and parts of the hills are actually sand. And I don't know if you've tried to run in the sand before, but it definitely adds to the rigor of the triathlon.
Alcatraz is an amazing prison and an American gem for 5 reasons. First, because of its rich and decadent history. Second, because of the common, everyday occurrences that went down there. Third, because of the families that helped make Alcatraz a home. Fourth, because of the famous and infamous criminals that graced its halls. And finally, how Alcatraz has managed to keep going strong in the modern 21st century.
Alcatraz is an American relic that is known for being one of the best prisons that America has ever seen. Through its history, its time as a prison, and its current events today, it is truly unforgettable and inescapable.